Looking for music that lifts your spirit and fills your heart? Experience the powerful sound of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. Now streaming on all your favorite music platforms. Find the Tabernacle Choir on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Let the music of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square inspire you today and every day. Whether you're at home, in the car, or on the go, enjoy the beauty of their world-renowned sound anytime. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, streaming now.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car's gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
DJ PK, we are joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU and Fresno State basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning.
Steve, the New York Knickerbockers have won 13 straight playoff games. My experience watching sports is the teams that have big winning streaks, when it falls apart, they often, not always, but they often have big losing streaks. This would be a terrible time to go out and lose 4 or 5, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be, and I'm hoping that does not happen. But that would be a terrible thing. I just don't see it happening. The Knicks journey, they've just done so many good things. They kind of embraced the bench. It's not just one or two guys. Obviously, Brunson is as clutch as they come, player of the year. Karl Anthony Towns, probably best shooting big. Mikal Bridges and Anunoby, 2 3-and-D wings. I think they've got control of what's happening, and I think they've embraced it. And I love the fact that Mike Brown's thoughts about it's about sacrifice. Knicks need all season to get it right, and they did. And embracing Tim Thibodeau, embracing the bench, they won an NBA Cup title. I love where the Knicks stand and where they are, and it's just fun to watch.
I like the idea of positionless basketball, having guys that can do all sorts of different things, right? And we don't pigeonhole them into a position like we used to just a few years back, and maybe a couple decades. But I think it is biting San Antonio a little bit in that, particularly on that Wembanyama turnover right down at the end, because they don't have a point guard. They can't identify one. So, go back to what people can relate to here. If Ostertag or Karl Malone got that rebound, Stockton goes right to the ball, right? And so you don't have that situation. And even if, Castle, I think that's who it was, if I remember correctly, had turned his back on Wembanyama and he throws the ball. Well, you saw Jalen Brunson there lurking, and I wonder if he would have went up and stole the ball from Wembanyama then, because Wembanyama's, when he bounces the ball to come up to him, is about the height of that Brunson is. So, and then on the other side, when it was tied 104, you've got Wembanyama taking a perimeter shot, and then obviously when it was 105, 104 with the game on the line, he takes a perimeter shot. I just don't know those two situations there. Get the ball to somebody who knows how to take it up, and do I really want my 7'4" guy? I know he's a positionless dude and he's got that skill, but is that the best offense to get in those situations?
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're in a late game situation and you're settling. That's what I would call it. Settling for, a 25-foot shot. Why not take that thing to the rim? Why not attack and then kick and get a wide open shot? I just think that the decision-making really hurt them and cost them winning the game, to be honest with you. And it was right there for them to take it and win it. And I just think that, Coach Brown, important to the fighting through and staying connected, fitting together, all of these things that, not only exist in college, but certainly in the NBA. And, I just felt like it was not great decisions, and it was circumstances that it could have been better by making an extra pass, not settling for a jump shot. All those things led to, losing that game and being in a position where they could, get themselves back in in a 7-game series and make things happen, but it really hurt.
And because we watched the playoffs and the finals, and then we look at the Utah Jazz and think, what lessons do we learn? I've thought for a while now the Jazz are going to add a veteran ball handler, someone who can and to PK's point, positionless, I don't know if we'll call him a true point guard. Maybe that's what it'll be. Maybe it'll be more of a combo guard, but still a veteran who can have the ball in their hands in the last 5 minutes of close games. Does this just maybe you already thought that was a guarantee. Does this make it more likely? Is there a world in which they don't add somebody like that?
Well, right now, you look at the top three as AJ, Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer. I know there are trades and drafts, and there's lots of things being talked about. But, right now it looks like you're going to have a Darren Peterson. I think he's 6'6", 6'7", can shoot it. And he'll be surrounded by Jackson and Markkanen and Kessler. I don't know. It might be a good time for something to take place. Peterson is a good shooter. I think he's about 6'6". And, I don't know if he's the difference maker, maybe a trade to get a better player. But Darren Peterson's not a bad get either. I mean, you're talking AJ, Darren, Cam Boozer are all three guys that are expected to take out. I know the Jazz have worked out all the prospects, and we'll just have to kind of see. But it would appear that Darren Peterson's going to be in a Jazz uniform next year, unless there's a trade or circumstances. You guys may know something that's happening, but I think Peterson's a guy, and what happens there or what trades happen, we'll see. I mean, Darren Peterson, I think he's 6'6". I'm not sure his exact, all of his measurements and things, but I think he's going to be in a Jazz uniform. I think he's a guy that has to continue to work on his defense ability, defending ability, and he certainly has the potential to become a good three-point shooter.
David Locke, the Jazz radio guy who is basketball extraordinaire with all of his knowledge and stats and everything, he's thinking that Washington might be leaning towards Peterson because I would agree with him. I think he's the most skilled guy in the draft, if all things considered. Right. And so he thinks it's going to be the Jazz are going to have to decide between Boozer and DeBonsa. And he's not as high on DeBonsa as I am, for sure, because, he doesn't think he's a good shooter. My thought for you, or good enough shooter, how much can you improve shooting as you age? Because he's still only 19 years old.
Oh, no. Listen, if you can get AJ, you take him. And there's no question. I mean, you're talking about young players here, and he's a small forward, and he's a guy that'll probably be the number one pick, unless we'll see what happens down the road here. But the things I like about this is AJ has proven that he can play in the mid-range game. Maybe he isn't as proven a three-point shooter, but these guys are going to spend their whole life working on becoming better shooters, becoming better defenders. If you can get AJ, they're better. I understand everybody has a different opinion on it, but the fact that he can play in the paint, that he can put it on the floor, he can create space. He's a mature young man. He makes good decisions. He doesn't take bad shots. I think everybody feels like it's going to be Darren Peterson. But if they can get AJ, I just think the Jazz become better. I know they've worked out everybody, but AJ makes them better if they can get him immediately. And I don't believe that because he's taking a lot of mid-range shots and because he does a lot of his work in the paint, that he can't become a three. I mean, he's 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. They're going to get better. And I think that he has some gifts and skills. You get him in a situation where that's all they're doing is playing basketball, working on their game. He just got the physicality. He can bump and take a hit. I like AJ. If they can get AJ, I think the Jazz get better. I'm not saying that Darren Peterson can't be a key cog there or Cam Boozer, but I just believe that the durability of AJ is different than Darren Peterson.
You mentioned earlier the Knicks, all the things that they did, including embracing the change from Thibodeau. They've embraced, I guess, some of the things that he preached as far as the way they defend. His fingerprints are still on the club, but it's definitely different with Brown calling the shots. And I'm curious, as a coach, how much it bugs you to see a coach who had his team in a conference final get let go. And we're seeing this more and more. I mean, Kyle Whittingham, 10-2, and they make the change to finish 11-2 with the bowl win with the team he built. We're seeing it in the Stanley Cup final. Vegas changed their coach out 8 games before the playoff start, and now they're up 2-1 in the Stanley Cup final. I grew up watching teams that change coaches largely pay a high price for that. It only you got lightning in a bottle occasionally, but it was usually a mistake. Now the Knicks run counter to that, and there's some other examples out here. I mean, Indiana football, 2 years after a coaching change, 16-0, it's unreal. Do you think the lifespan on coaches is shorter, and how comfortable are you with that, given the fact you're an ex-coach and you've seen a lot of what I've seen and what PK's seen?
Yeah, my thoughts initially are, the word that comes to me is, patience. And I think sometimes whether it's a GM or whether it's a coach or it's a teammate, whatever the circumstances are, I don't know if I'm old school or whatever the circumstances are, but I believe that the Knicks and their journey, kind of embracing the bench and how they're 2 wins away now from a championship. It's been 53 years. You got Brunson as a clutch player of the year candidate, Karl Anthony Towns, great big with Bridges and OG Anunoby. 3-and-D wings. I think everything's in place. And changing coaches, changing players, that can be a really slippery slope. And I know that the GMs and the coaches and everybody involved with making those kind of decisions, I would just take a breath, slow down. Let's reevaluate this thing and realize what we have in front of us. And we know the Knicks are 2 wins away from winning a championship, and it's been a long time. And we know that Brunson and Towns and Mikal Bridges and Anunoby, this team sets. Why mess with this? Don't mess with Happy, right? Don't mess with it. You've got the guys in place, and it's just I would be really disappointed. And I still love Coach Mike Brown and talking about sacrifice and getting things right and being committed and embracing kind of the bench. And I think that's what's happening. And I am really pulling for the Knicks. It's been a long time, and I'm not a New Yorker. I'm not a guy that's lived there. But I do like the makeup of this team, and it'd be really disappointing not see them take this and win the whole thing.
We're getting in the middle of June now, and as I look at BYU's roster, they still seem like a big man short. Level of concern that they don't get somebody, or they do get somebody and it's taken care of. But I think the fans are getting a little nervous the longer this takes.
Well, there's always going to be that. The fans are going to always be a little bit nervous and not knowing exactly what's going on. We know that recruiting at the collegiate level is happening internationally. It's a significant part of the basketball program at BYU. I think what KY is doing there, and they've got a really seasoned staff, and we know I always kind of got a smile on my face when I see about 20 guys over there on the bench. But I do believe that KY has put himself in a position with his staff, with the international recruiting, everything that they're doing. I think that they'll find the bigs they need, and it may take all summer. And I think another thing is that just the Europe situation, going to Europe, international teams and games, I think all of that, there's still time for that. And, we'll see what happens. I'm not in the day-to-day decision-making of that, but I have great confidence in KY and his staff, and I have great confidence in a program that's seems to be doing all the right things. So let's just see what happens, how it plays out. But I do believe a big part of this will be the international players that they're going to find here late in the summer. Because they do need a big, you're right.
Do they need just one, or do they need more than one?
Well, get one for sure.
Okay.
Yes. Get one for sure. But you're right. You can't have enough bigs. You can't have enough guys. I love the fact that you can go into Europe or go into the international scene and find players that have maturity, who have played, on obviously teams that 14, 15, 16 years old that are playing professionally and develop. And you have your high schools here and you have a junior college here. But, the advantage, I think, for programs to go out and seek and find players that, in fact, are in a position and have had that experience, I think enhances your opportunities to get better, especially during the summer.
We had on Todd Phillips at UVU, and instead of sitting around whining because he knows he's going to lose his top players most of the time, and he's put out some really good teams here of late, and so they come for his guys. I love the fact that his recruiting pitch, even to high school 4-star kids who are coming out, hey, don't go somewhere else and maybe sit on the bench. Come here as a freshman. You know you'll play, and all these other guys that are going through the transfer model, I guess, that they come here, prove yourself, and then move on. It's like he is flourishing with that basketball program by working the new crazy rules to his advantage. And it just seems so bizarre to recruit somebody saying, hey, come here, play well, and then you can move on to the ACC, the Big Ten, and so forth. We've seen it, the Big 12. And it's funny that you wouldn't think that that's what would be, but he's embracing it, and it's working. It's like when you were coaching junior college. Guys coming and going, well, rather than whine about it, just find the best players you can and go from there, even if it's just for one season.
No, I love that thought process, and I love what Coach is doing there. I think it's just part of the world that we live in now. And I remember being, a high school and a junior college coach, and it was all about, I remember 2 or 3 players, Ray Alston being one, who ended up playing in the NBA for years, and he was my point guard at Fresno City College. And, the whole idea was come in here for a year. Just come here for a year, get this thing right, get yourself in a position where you can go play collegiately at the highest level, then go play in the NBA. And that was something we talked about all the time, that we have an opportunity here. And Coach Phillips is doing that, and I think I did that as a junior college coach, and it gave them an opportunity. And I had a number of players as a junior college coach who went on to play at a very high level in college as well as the NBA, and the opportunities were there. And so I did that most of my coaching career. I would just, hey, come play for a year. I'll get you somewhere that'll help you get better and get to the league. And that's what I did with every player that I coached in junior college, and even at BYU and at Fresno State, where come in, take a year. And I remember Paul George. It about killed me, but I had to tell him the truth, And here he is. He's playing. He's had a great year. And the next thing I know, after that great year, he's gone. And he's in the NBA. And it was painful. Then I began to realize that let's focus on getting the very best players we can get. And if it's just for a year, so be it. And it helped me have a better mindset in terms of just always being disappointed because I'm losing guys. Let's go find and convince, like Coach Phillips and others you've mentioned, let's go find the best player we can find. And if it's just for a year, fine. If it's just 2 years, whatever. And you work that system, and it puts you in a position where you can get somebody again and then somebody else down the line. And that's, I think, how you have to recruit now, especially with the transfer portal and all of the things that are taking place.
All teams are built for 1 year. If you're one of the powerhouse programs, you've got the NBA taking kids after 1 year. And if you're anywhere else down the food chain, you got somebody above the food chain. So don't complain about it. And you two probably know this, but there are probably a lot of listeners who don't. It's like push is going to come to shove here pretty quick with BYU getting big men. But there is a date out there, and it's Saturday afternoon. Players in the draft either have to say, I'm staying in the draft, or that's their last chance to pull out. And so depending on who pulls out, there are going to be some big men available. Presumably BYU's been working on this, but I'm looking at the list. There's 13 guys, 6'10", or taller, who've been playing in colleges here in the United States, and there's another 5 guys in the draft who are playing overseas who are 19, 20, or 21. Now, not all those guys are going to pull their names out of the draft. Caleb Wilson is on this list. He'll stay in the draft. So it's not like all these guys are going to be available, but they're going to be some people available. And we don't know about some dude from Serbia or Spain or Greece, but they're all there, and presumably, the BYU coaching staff and a bunch of other coaching staffs are all poised, waiting to pounce as soon as these guys decide if they're going pro or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're waiting. They're doing all the work they need to do. And I'm not as familiar right now in terms of calendar and when you can do this and when you can do that. And I just kind of took those things for granted. But I think that you're absolutely right. You get yourself in a position where you can, in fact, find the bigs you're looking for, whether that's, internationally or whether it's through a transfer or through a junior college. I mean, junior college, that has almost become a non-existent thing. The highest levels of national junior college guys they can tap into. I've got a good friend, Jeff Reiner, who's been up at CSI, and I sometimes talk to him and ask him how he goes about recruiting. And he says, it's not much different than the Division I level. You're trying to get guys for a year, sell them on, hey, come here, play for me, and I'll get you to Houston. I'll get you to, wherever it might be. And I think that's the mentality and the mindset. And I think that's what you have to do and realize that, hey, you do everything you can to get that big, and whatever it takes. If you don't, you keep working it. Like you'd mentioned, both of you have mentioned internationally. I think there's opportunities, and that's what the game is now. And dealing with the transfer portal is something unique. And people are here and they're not there. You gotta basically just put your arms around it, embrace it, don't complain about it, and do the very best you can to make your program better. Whatever that commitment is to, whether it's junior college, whether it's a transfer portal, whatever the circumstances, be on top of that. I don't think you can be a college or a junior college or any coach today that if you're not fully aware of what's going on around the world. And that's just kind of how it is, and I don't see that changing. The transfer portal is not going away, and that's just the world of college basketball and the world of professional basketball. That's just how things are, and you have to embrace it. If you don't embrace it, you're going to be behind the 8 ball there.
Steve, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week.
All right, fellas, have a great week.
Steve Cleveland, former BYU and Fresno State basketball coach. Matt Larkin, managing editor, senior writer at Daily Faceoff. Talking Stanley Cup Finals next. Stay with us.
Welcome to This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Covers the Grizzlies for the Daily Memphian. He's Drew Hill.
I know there are differences in Memphis between regular season Jaren and playoff Jaren. And what did Grizzlies fans see from Jaren in the biggest games in the playoffs?
I thought it was a great trade for the Jazz. Jaren was not only one of the best players on the Grizzlies, but was also just one of the best people in the locker room. Like, the leadership skills were there for sure. He's going to have games where he's awesome, and then he's going to have some of these games in the playoffs where he's going to leave a little bit to be desired. The Grizzlies thought that they had a player that might be capable of being a number one on a playoff team, and I don't think he quite got to that point for them where they could trust that he was dependable enough in the postseason that you could sit back, give him the ball late in games, and he'd be able to get you bucket. It never really transpired that way.
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined once again by Matt Larkin, managing editor and senior writer at Daily Faceoff. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. Matt, I imagine there's some hockey fan somewhere in America who's watching that game and it's 4-0, and there's some honeydew list, or they go to the bathroom, they're pulled away from the TV for a couple minutes, they come back, I guess it's 4-0. They come back and it's 3 goals in 39 seconds. They're like, what just happened? I just went out and moved the car. What happened?
Well, it's funny, too. It's like apparently the motto or the moral of this series is never lead a game 2-0, because the team that led 2-0 has blown that lead in all 3 games. It's been pretty spectacular, particularly because if you think of the identity of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes and their coaches, John Tortorella and Rod Brind'Amour, they play lockdown hockey. They're known for smothering their opponents. They're known for preferring to win a game 2-1. And it's just been wild back and forth. All 3 games in this series have been absolute barn burners.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Taking a big picture view, hockey people, whether it's the commissioner or whomever, just look at the last year plus, the 4 nations, the Olympics, and now this. I mean, could you ask for anything better for hockey?
And I think I agree. And I think a real testament to it is the fact that even if you look at as hockey markets, Carolina and Vegas, they're not necessarily 2 that will attract fans from all over typically, but we're still seeing huge TV ratings. We're seeing the highest TV ratings we've ever gotten in the U.S. Throughout the entire year, and we're seeing record revenues for the NHL. So it does feel like the game is reaching a new peak right now.
I hesitate to ask you to predict anything because this series has been so incredibly unpredictable. Is there anything you feel sure about going forward?
I'm sure that it's going to continue like this back and forth, and my prediction before the series started was Vegas in 7. It still feels about right. I think both teams are just so well coached, and they're so deep, and they're so good at both ends of the ice that I just don't see either team backing down and wilting in this series. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a big punch back from Carolina. I'm very intrigued, though, to see what Rod Brind'Amour does with his goaltending situation.
Oh, you took the question right out of my mouth.
Yeah, exactly, right? Do you give Freddie Anderson a mulligan and stick with him, or do you pivot to Brandon Bussi, who was excellent? And even if you look at the overtime winner, it was an unbelievably fluky goal. Yeah. So in my mind, he pretty much didn't give up a real goal on a clean shot. So I think that's also a major factor that could determine what happens next.
This Vegas run has been magical, and it's been almost so many games have been on the edge, particularly the Utah series, which seems like it was a long time ago now. How much credit are you giving to the coaching change?
Well, it's funny because I did talk to all the Vegas players leading up to Game 1 when I was there for Media Day, and they all had really, really definitively nice things to say about John Tortorella. And he is a coach who can come in and really change a culture quickly because he has that fire-breathing mentality. But what, to a man, a lot of the Golden Knights players said was, yes, he has that part of his persona. He's very honest with you if you're struggling, but he also has a real human side to him. And I think it was Jack Eichel who told me he feels like John Tortorella really cares. And that's not a knock on Bruce Cassidy. I'm not saying that's shots fired. I'm just saying that's how the Golden Knights seem to feel about Torts. And love him or hate him, he does seem to have a really strong impact. And I think that historically a coach with his type of persona, often, especially in the short term, will always move the needle because it's just such a breath of fresh air for the dressing room. And it's a veteran group of guys. And Tortorella even said he felt like they didn't need that much because they're a group that has already won a Stanley Cup, a lot of them. They only needed a few mild tweaks. And I think just his persona going into that dressing room has put them over the top.
I want to go back to your point about goaltending and giving a mulligan. Is it a mulligan or is it 13 goals in 3 games? So this is more than a mulligan. This is now a trend in the series. And you can't just add up the goals because it's where you loosen the puck on the ice and what kind of opportunities are you making? Are you giving Vegas to score? So you got to factor that in. And then also, I didn't go to goaltender camp, but listen to people talk about it. That it was a bad bounce and it was fluky the way it came off the boards and this off the skate and in. But a little over skating there, you're supposed to go from post to post specifically so that doesn't happen. That's a fundamental that's been covered, and you should have that down at that level. So what do you think of that take, and what do you think about the 3-game trend? Because all that has to be weighed when making this decision.
For sure, and I think it is a fair point. You could argue that Bussi, he wasn't exactly in the right place at the right time on that goal. But overall, if you look at Freddie Anderson's body of work, historically he has a history of wilting deeper in the playoffs. Last season, the first couple rounds, he was at a .937 save percentage, and he was something like .838 in round 3 against Florida. He's a big guy, and I do wonder if we're seeing his annual physical breakdown maybe just happening around later. We also have to factor in he is grieving a tragedy right now, right? He was very close to his agent, Claude Lemieux, and yes, he did come forward right after and have a great game in response the day after, which was the one that closed out the Montreal series, but we still don't know how he's really processing what he's gone through and whether it maybe could be a delayed effect that's sort of carrying into the series. So I think all in all, if I'm Rod Brindamore, I consider giving Freddie Anderson a break, because if Carolina loses the next game, you can't do it for an elimination game. You can't say, okay, now we're going to go to Brandon Bussey. I think you got to go to Bussey for this one because he showed something. And if it doesn't work, you can still pivot back to Anderson for the next game. So I think this is your window. I think you can only actually do it right now. So to me, if I'm Rod Brindamore, I go with Brandon Bussey.
It's a little old, but the review in Game 2 by Vegas Golden Knights was somewhat controversial, but yet Tortorella said he would do it 10 out of 10 times. So I like the way he came out, almost like defiantly, that was saying, yeah, I would do it every time, even though it was, we know what happened and it cost him in the short term and all that stuff. But what do you think of that? Because I like his conviction to look at it and make the call, even though, in this case, with being down a man as far as a penalty is pretty significant, especially compared to the other sports.
Yeah, it's funny. I read it as someone, I was in the room when he said it. I read it more as a reflection of his personality. He's not going to give any quarter. He's going to just double down or triple down, and he's not going to admit whether it was a questionable decision. If you look at what Rod Brindamore said after, he didn't want to really get too much into it, but he did say, I don't know, I see it as if there's even a shadow of a doubt, you don't challenge. And that's kind of how I leaned. I think it was a risky challenge as soon as it happened, and obviously it proved very costly in that game.
Right, but I love his attitude, even though I took it in almost in a defiant sense that, screw you, I'm going to do it. And I don't care whether anybody likes it or dislikes it. What they think doesn't matter to me in the least.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's kind of a tort's gonna torts type of moment. He's not gonna relent, especially minutes after a game ended when his team ended up losing that game. I know technically Vegas still tied the game again after that, but still overall, you could argue it changed the face of that game in terms of the back and forth, right? So I don't think he's going to want to just give up that admission on the spot.
Do you think fans are outraged after the goal was not disallowed the second time, or is that clear-cut enough? How many bodies get to be in the crease? It looked like a 6-car pileup in Turn 3 in a NASCAR race. How much action can there be in the crease before a goal is disallowed?
Yeah, it's really tough. I think you have to treat it on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's the only way you can do it fairly. You have to just look at, okay, who contacted the goaltender? Was he pushed in by someone on his own team? When did the puck cross the line? When was the whistle blown? All of those factors, depending on the review, you need to, I think, use a fine-tooth comb instead of a broad stroke to determine what's right. And I know it can lead to perceived inconsistencies. Well, what about this one that wasn't disallowed? This one was disallowed. But I think that's the only way you can do it with the maximum accuracy. You have to just look at every little element of the play.
Mammoth are sitting on some assets and got some talent on the team. A guy like Dylan Larkin, I just saw a story that, he may want to be traded, but they were listing Panthers, Wild, or Golden Knights, and obviously that's not the Mammoth. But from the Mammoth perspective, when do you know it, or if it even comes to that, to make a deal for an established guy if it means giving up one or two of your prospects that seems like we've been hearing about, and at least here in our area, we're so much anticipating these guys arriving on the scene because we've been hearing about them for a year or two since the team moved. It seems like Bill Armstrong, you got to be careful here. You want to improve the team, but you don't want to improve the team in the short term by giving up a young stud that could be good for the next decade.
Right. So I'm guessing you're referring to Tija Ginla and Denoyer. Yeah, those are the two big ones. You're fascinating to me. And it's funny. So I did write about Dylan Larkin and about places he wants to go. I think the story on Daily Faceoff might have just gone live on our site while we're talking, guys. And I did mention Utah still in that piece because Utah to me is a team that's in a fascinating window where they've improved a lot. They've reached that critical mass of young players. And I think you're a trade away from leveling up and joining the Colorados and Dallases and Notice. I think you could bridge that gap with one more move. And if you're Bill Armstrong, maybe you consider holding on to one, but you're willing to trade the other. So if Detroit, the problem is Detroit's lost, they've missed the playoffs 10 years in a row. They don't necessarily want futures. But if they're in a situation where they don't have the right offer, they could consider taking a Caleb Denoyer, who's a center, as part of that package. And then you bring in Larkin, and then you have Nick Schmaltz, you have Logan Cooley, Dylan Larkin. You're 3 deep up the middle, and I think Utah, to me, is an intriguing team to make a trade like that because, one, with the prospects they have, but two, just cap-wise, if you go up and down what they have right now, most of the key pieces are under contract. There's no really scary free agent that needs to be re-signed. So there is a window to add. With the right move, you can join the top contenders. It's just a matter of, okay, yes, Dylan Larkin, he's only listed 3 teams that he's interested in, but I'm still a little skeptical on that. I think that he's going to have to expand that list. It's not always easy, especially a team like Vegas, who's in a pretty tight situation as is.
Do you think if they just stand pat in that internal organic improvement, guys getting a year better and all that, could the Mammoth be a 100-point team? 92 this year. There are only 300-point teams in the West. I mean, if you get there, it seems like you're right there at the top shelf.
Yeah, if I'm making a prediction right now for next season, I'm going to say yes, 100 points. Probably right around there. Even if you just look at Logan Cooley alone and the improvements you're seeing from him, and let's say we get a full season in which he doesn't get banged up and miss a chunk of games, that alone could give you that extra cluster of wins. Plus, you have a full season of Mackenzie Weegar now playing your top 4 on D. So I think they're already a 100-point team. I think the question is, do you make the trade now to become a 110-point team?
Ooh. Wow.
Because there were all of 3 of those in the league this year. You'd be one of 4 if you got there.
If you add Dylan Larkin and you're trading futures, so you're not pulling anything out of that lineup. So let's say if we use Caleb Denoyer as the example, you're just dropping Dylan Larkin into a lineup that was already a playoff team this year. Yeah. So I can see it for sure.
So you're fine giving up one, but not both?
I think so. And I think if it's one, it's got to be for a real sweetheart situation. So Dylan Larkin, I think he's 29. His track is quite reasonable, right? He's less than $9 million a year. And in the $104 million rising cap world, that contract is even better. So if you can get a perfect asset that has several years left in his prime and actually gives you a real chance at the Stanley Cup for a sustained period of time, then maybe you do make that exception and trade one of your top guys. Because the thing is with Utah, yes, they have Denoyer and Naginla, but there's still more below them on the prospect ladder. They have several other, whether it's Cole Baudouin. There are so many in this system. They're really stacked. So I think they can spare one if it's for the right deal.
Well, Matt, that gives us something to ponder. Thanks for dropping that on the way out the door. Good work.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the good debate here. Good questions.
Matt Larkin, managing editor and senior writer at Daily Faceoff. It's a 100-point team if they get everybody back and stay healthy, and it could be 110 if they trade futures and get a major impact guy right now.
Well, if you do that for that level of player.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then, if you have big-time success, and it doesn't really matter what the youngster does someplace else.
Right.
You're okay with that. You just got to make sure.
If you get your results, they can get theirs, then it's a win-win. Whatever, fine. You don't have to pick their pocket. You just have to win.
Right, exactly. If you win, then whatever you gave up was worth it, because if you got to the obviously if you won the whole thing, but even if you got there to play, that's something that you can't just sneeze at, because you take your chances once you get there, because one little freaky bounce and the next thing you know, you're hoisting the cup. So I understand that. It's still, but you just can't take a player and, okay, he's doing all this over here and assume, okay, we're just going to add whatever production he had, boom, he comes over here and he's the same player and everything's great. It doesn't necessarily always work that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think they just saw that this year, making the trade with Buffalo.
With Pajerka, I get it. Yeah. But he would probably go in the deal, I would think. But I
can see what you're thinking.
But that's beside the point. Beside the point that you're making. Yeah, it does. The transition, it just doesn't go from place A, and then he comes here and he's the same player or better. You don't know. That's the somewhat, I wouldn't say necessarily scary, but it's something that has to be weighed and debated and back and forth and so forth. Because the last thing you want is somebody to come in, get hurt, not be functioning at the same level, and then in a year or two, the guy that you gave up blows up.
The thing that Matt brought up, which is a really good point, which is one where, again, we're newer to this and we got too many teams to follow at the quote-unquote major league level to be following these guys on the way up. How many... And this requires projection by, Armstrong and his group. How many of these young guys really are going to be something? And how many, like if you think you have...
Not all, certainly.
Right. And if you think you have like 2 or 3 who have a really high chance, and you got another 3 who have a decent chance to be something, or 2 more, whatever those numbers are, how many of them can fit given the roster and who's going to age off the roster? It's really what the Oklahoma City Thunder have. They have so many good young players, and they have so many draft picks. Like, they got to move some. They got to do some 2-for-1s or 3-for-1s. Now, it might be a stretch to say the Mammoth are in that position. You got to go evaluate that, and we can't really do that sitting here right now.
But our boy Teej, we've been hearing about him. And thinking, he's supposed to be all this.
I'd be surprised if he's all this and what we've heard about him, that he'd be in the group. But given that you have...
So you give Des Noyers?
You have some in the group, and you have other people in the system, I would think those. But wouldn't be the first time we've heard, hey, you can have... And you follow baseball, you know this as well as anyone. Hey, we got prospects in the minors. You can have some of them. You can't have that one. Now, whether you try to protect 2, and that's the whole negotiation, the back and forth.
I would go with Des Noyer because Des Noyers, it's hard to say. It's like when my kid was in grade school and doing the Capitals, and she says Des Moines.
Nice.
So basically, the capital of Iowa is Des Moines.
Bill Armstrong needs to understand that your charge to him is build a Stanley Cup champ, but... build a Stanley Cup champ with names that are easy to pronounce.
Yeah. I mean, how do you get Des Noyers?
Cooley?
Of course, he's looking at me saying, wait a second, how do you get Tawil out of Tolier?
See? Cooley and Keller, fine.
Yeah.
But you start getting 10 syllables and French pronunciations.
Yeah.
So right away... biased against prospects out of Ottawa. There it is. Okay.
I mean,
Quebec.
come on, Rudy Gobert. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert. Once he managed to master the language. I loved interviewing Rudy Gobert. He was gauging when he could do that. All right. More with Rudy Gobert coming up. DJ and PK, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Well, ticket prices for Game 3 in New York City ranging from $10,000 to $50,000 to get into Madison Square Garden. Apparently, the cheapest one they could find, ESPN ran a thing earlier this morning. It was just under $5,000. Somebody was sneaking in for $4,700 or $4,800 per ticket.
I'd pay $5,000.
You would not.
Fetch, I wouldn't.
You would not.
You've never been in the Garden for an NBA Finals game.
I agree, but I've watched you spend money. So I'm going to go with you would not.
I've been in the Garden for an NBA Finals game.
I could see you talking yourself into $500 for you and the missus to go to the game.
No, she'd have to stay home.
No, you're not going by yourself. Again, I've seen you go out to dinner. I've seen you go golfing.
My father actually did that. He was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they played World Series games in the day. Mm-hmm. And he took off work and bought one ticket.
I do know a friend of the family. The kid grew up and moved to Seattle, and he played soccer growing up in that. And so he bought one season ticket to the Sounders and got to sit at midfield because they had one they couldn't
but this
sell.
isn't a friend of the family. This is my father.
Yeah, cool.
I'm named after him. I'm his blood.
Was it a one-off?
I'm half Irish.
Because once he got in, then eventually he gets a girlfriend, gets married, and then he's buying 2 season tickets.
I'm half Irish. Get me a Guinness.
And then you don't want a Guinness. And then he gives them up because now they're saving because they want to have kids and start a family. So he's all grown up and he's
That's
out.
That's a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, let me text him and let him know that. Yeah, there's a time and a place. Do you ever go to a movie by yourself?
Oh, yeah. I've been on the road a million times.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah. Yeah, my wife was working Monday through Friday. I was working Wednesday through Sunday. I go to a movie on a Tuesday.
What are you
going on?
You got to check out of your room because you're driving down to Denver.
But the game's at 7 and you're checking out at noon. What do you do?
Yeah.
Lock that suitcase in the trunk and go to a theater.
Exactly.
Got to go somewhere.
Plenty of times.
Classic. 10 to 50 grand. Now, what are they going to do? Because they're not going to have the watch parties. And now there was some thought the president, and that's because of the Secret Service. Now there's some thought that he would stay for Game 4 if they're going for the sweep and win, and other people think he won't. But when the crowd surges, like Milwaukee always sticks with me. Milwaukee hadn't won in 50 years, and when they were winning the clinching game, people were just spontaneously going down the arena.
Oh yeah,
and it just kept getting. And they were showing during the game, the crowd's getting bigger. The crowd's getting bigger. Like, what will they do in New York if everyone it won't happen in Game 3.
Well, they'll have the watch party in Game 4.
If he's not there.
He's not going to be there.
For sure? Okay.
Well, I listened to a press conference on the way going in this morning.
Oh, okay. That's way later than what I heard.
And the police folk said he wasn't going to Game 4. He was only going to Game 3.
Going 3, okay.
Now, of course, if they lose tonight, then Game 4 is not a clincher anyway.
Right.
But if I were him, man, I show up in a retro Clyde Frazier jersey with nothing on underneath.
That Larry Miller moment.
Yeah.
Walking across.
Well, not necessarily the shorts.
I was saying with the shorts, though?
Not the shorts.
Okay.
But the jersey? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And give
Clyde.
me a Nick cap, slightly askew. You got your street cred right here.
Does he put on, like, the fake orange and blue glasses that Spike wears?
No, that's Spike's thing.
Okay.
You don't want to.
How many of the?
You don't want to incite anything. That's not his style.
If they're trying to.
That's nice.
Okay, never mind. I'll save that question for later. I'm not topping that line. All right. When we come back. Oh, there's nothing PK loves more. He loves more than a breaking story from our courts. But in this case, you're going to make an exception because this is going to impact a game. It's going to impact the field of play. Texas Tech has their ruling. Surprise! Next. Stay with us.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.